Yesterday, as I listened to the arguments before the Supreme Court of the United States, I felt something that many female athletes have felt for years, but rarely hear acknowledged in rooms like that one. I felt invisible. What I heard was a discussion about women's sports that did not meaningfully include women's lived experiences. Instead, it relied on legal abstractions, clinical language, and redefinitions that quietly but profoundly erase the very people women's sports were created to protect. Throughout the arguments, female athletes were not treated as a class with a shared physical reality, history of exclusion, and hard-won protections. We were treated as a category that could be reduced to hormone levels, labels, and identity language, as if being female were not a material reality, but a variable to be managed. I heard boys and men who feel female described as trans women and girls, and they used female pronouns, she. As a matter of course, I heard biological women referred to as cisgender, while men who identify as women were framed as the vulnerable class requiring accommodation, special accommodation. And words matter, especially in law. When language shifts, so do rights. What was missing from the courtroom was the acknowledgement and the repeated acknowledgement of these males and as he, him. Because pronouns are the foundation of women's civil rights. When we give them our words, now they have all the legal protections and they are now women, and women no longer have women's rights. They have advantages in endurance, power, strength. And the reason Title IX exists is to give girls separate teams in the first place. And yet the discussion treated the presence of males in women's sports as a minor adjustment, something measurable only by percentages. Fairness is not a percentage. One male in a woman's competition is too many. One male displacing a female athlete from a podium, a scholarship, a roster spot, or a record book is not negligible. One male in a woman's locker room is not a rounding error, and it can affect all the women in that locker room because women do not experience harm statistically. We experience it materially. The impact of a male body in a woman's locker room is not theoretical. It's immediate. It places the burden of accommodation entirely on females. It tells girls that their discomfort, their privacy, their dignity are secondary to the emotional affirmation of a male. It tells them that their boundaries are negotiable, that their bodies are up for reinterpretation, and that their sports are no longer truly theirs. And if they disagree, they will be called names and they will be silenced. What troubled me most was that nowhere in the arguments did I hear sustained attention to the exclusion of female athletes, not the quiet losses, not the girls that stop competing, not the women who train for years only to be told that inclusion requires their displacement. Instead, the legal framework assumed that women must absorb this change because our category has been linguistically softened, redefined, and stripped of clarity. Women are not an identity class. We are a biological reality. And women's sports are not about inclusion at all costs. They are about fairness, safety, and equal opportunity for a sex class that has historically been excluded because of male physical dominance. The law should not be used to dissolve those protections through euphemism and abstraction. True equality does not require women to surrender the very spaces created to make competition possible in the first place. Remember, these boys have equal opportunity to play on boys' teams. And if the highest court cannot plainly acknowledge that, the cost will not be theoretical. It will be borne by girls, by women, by female athletes who are told once again that their existence is negotiable.